an experiment in both governance and billionaire power grabs is ending. And it's kind of different than what we might have thought when it began. Elon Musk leaving his government work. And he made this, what is basically an admitted exit kind of interview, final appearance with the president. And as with other situations with loud, powerful, or political people, sometimes even when they admit something or reality suggests something, like he has less power than he did on day one and he's leaving, we're still hearing that he'll be around.
I expect to remain a friend and an advisor, and certainly if there's anything the president wants me to do, I'm at the president's service.
Elon has worked tirelessly helping lead the most sweeping and consequential government reform program in generations.
Will the real president please stand up, you might say, to paraphrase Eminem? Elon Musk standing over the proceedings, a kind of physical way that he likes to announce himself, just as he did in cabinet meetings. But of course, the real president, seated, was watching him stand up to go. And while they said some nice things about each other, let's be clear that on the evidence, which is how we all try to keep track of things if we're being serious in journalism or policy, you have to count it up. A lot of these things did not work as they were claimed to work. A lot of these so-called savings did not materialize. And that's before you even get to counting up the cost of some of these cuts. Now, Musk set out to save $150 billion. That's what he says he might have gotten. Of course, that's far less than the trillions he promised, and he is leaving. He could have taken a permanent position where he'd have to do more transparency or divest, but instead, he's getting out of Dodge. There are independent reports which suggest if you look at actual verified savings and not the sort of rosy estimates, you get down to $16 billion. In federal dollars, when you talk about multi-year programs, that's actually a tiny slice. The New York Times reports that the approach, what I just mentioned, how the things work, the firings and then sometimes rehirings, the productivity loss, paid leave for the people that they fired when they didn't really have a plan worked out, also adds upwards of $135 billion in the fiscal year. Now, because this was so chaotic and fast, they, the government, and they, the New York Times and reports, and we here at MSNBC cannot give you a full and exact accounting. I can just show you that when it's all said and done, he may have cost more than he saved, and he was supposed to be Mr. Savings. Now, we don't know why different information leaks out when it does, but on this tough news day for Mr. Musk and a tough day for him in politics as he kind of steps back, there are quite serious reports about his use of drugs while cozying up to Trump on the campaign trail as recently as last year. Now, Times puts it that he was using drugs more intensely than previously known. The article lists, quote, ketamine, ecstasy, psychedelic mushrooms, Adderall. Now, that is a serious set of claims. And while people can debate what private individuals do, whether it breaks the law or not, and how newsworthy that is, this matters for someone who is wielding government power, who was overseeing programs where they fire people. Some people in the federal government can be removed for drug use. He was working as a special employee in the federal government, and the Times is reporting about that. I also want to tell you that while that's in the Times, NBC News has not confirmed it. Now, Musk has discussed some of these issues. Take a listen.
But you've admitted that you have a ketamine subscription, prescription.
Yeah.
Do you think you're inebriated when you do ketamine?
No, if you do a lot of ketamine, then you're inebriated.
Yeah.
If you do a small amount, you're not.
That's my question about, do you ever abuse it? That's why
I don't think so.
That was an exchange there with journalist Don Lemon, who was then ousted from X, which Musk had bought, after that interview. I do want to note in the timeline, because some of this has to do with his political and government activities, the interview itself there was before the campaign time that he was spending with Trump. And the Times reports that it did go, they say, and they're reporting, his usage was beyond what you might call, quote, occasional use. Now, with regard to whether this affects his wielding of federal powers, that report does not state whether this was happening in the last 120 days during this period. Musk also sidestepping a question about it at that press conference. He went on the attack against journalism instead of just addressing it. The White House also put out statements praising Musk, but has not addressed those issues separately. All of this news is coming as Musk is leaving an operation where even he doesn't claim he succeeded, leaving public service having lost many billions of dollars because the public had views about his service and it affected him. And he is now distancing himself from at least some Trump policies.
It's not like I agree with everything the administration does. I'm a little stuck in a bind where I'm like, well, I don't want to, speak out against the administration, but I don't want to. I also don't want to take responsibility for everything the administration is doing.
Welcome to public service. The difference between Musk and virtually everyone else who signs up to work for a president is most people treat it like the serious full-time job that it is. They take an oath to the Constitution. They understand as long as you're in that job, you do the thing he said he didn't want to do. You have to go along with the values and plans of the person you work for, in this case the president, or if you reach a breaking point, you quit. Musk is again trying to have it both ways, and he has clearly basked in some of the power and attention of being tied to the president and donating a lot of money to the president when they were running last year, while also wanting to make the break in ways that benefit or matter to him. He did express disagreement with aspects of that budget, and he noted that it is in conflict with his supposed goal of saving money, which he's leaving having not achieved. Meanwhile, we have the tariffs, which many business leaders continue to oppose. The way Trump launched them, how they've affected chaotic markets, this week getting a court setback. The Treasury Secretary is still going back and forth about how Trump's inconsistent messaging towards China on whether there'll be high, medium, or low tariffs, how that's affecting negotiations there.
I would say that they are a bit stalled.
So stalled, there was a time when the president thought that it was moving forward pretty significantly.
Again, I think that given the magnitude of the talks, given the complexity, that this is going to require both leaders to weigh in with each other.
That's the Trump perspective. Those are the people defending how this is going. And I guess because they've dealt with so much reality, setbacks, market feedback, they're finding that just lying or claiming that things are perfect doesn't work. So we're hearing a still best case scenario of failed trade war policies. We've gone from 90 deals in 90 days to maybe we're going to get a deal to the deals are stalled. Now, there's a report that says this trade war thus far has already cost over $30 billion. Not all of that will be felt by people overnight. Reuters making the point that the lost sales, the higher costs, will kind of spread out as costs across the economy, and they'll be paid by a lot of regular people. Here's a toy company CEO speaking out today.
Because the rules change every 2 days, like we're stuck in some sort of telenovela, you don't really know what to do. We are constantly making decisions with guesses because we don't know what the rules are. This is our own government doing this to us, which is shocking. It's absolutely shocking.
That continues to happen. And while on some days the trade war might not feel like big news, it might not have another inflection point, it is the daily life and setback of so many of these companies and businesses. This is not necessarily at this point a big story about ideology. It's become a story about competence and incompetence. A U.S. government led by Donald Trump claiming we're going to do this thing and then failing to do that thing, and then the thing they're doing costing Americans a lot of money. And the whole point in the beginning was it was going to save us money or make us stronger against other countries. Over at the ports, the reporting shows the inconsistency is taking its toll. One official saying one day it makes sense to ship, the next day it doesn't. Over in Europe, a trade negotiator says it doesn't make any sense to negotiate about tariffs that might be proved illegal, citing the U.S. court ruling against Trump this week. The courts leave some latitude for Congress and the president to do normal tariffing and normal trade work. That's why, if you think back, even if you're not following it that closely, you might not remember huge court rulings against the trade policies of the last several presidents in both parties. But Trump on this issue, like on immigration, has pushed these laws past the breaking point. And that's why he's getting adverse rulings. Take the Fox News sister outlet, the Wall Street Journal. Their very pro-trade, pro-Wall Street editorial board says it's time that court ruling put Trump, he's the chief executive, put Trump in his proper constitutional place, noting he is no tariff king, and he's not supposed to be. Some Republicans are pointing out the obvious problems. Karl Rove, the Bush Republican who at times has clashed with Trump, says their messaging is a muddled mess and Trump's chaotic trade war badly damages Republicans, he warns, going into the midterms. So, is it as bad as it looks, or is it worse? That's the fairest way you can put it, even if you only cite sources like the Wall Street Journal and Karl Rove, to say nothing of other independent analysts and liberal critics who say Trump's second 100 days are even more of a disaster than the first, which is why he's losing from the markets to the courts.